Hello, everybody, and welcome to O'Malley News. I'm your host, Mr. Sousa. This is our first new broadcast from O'Malley since 2006. Yes, each homeroom used to have a small TV in the corner of the classroom, and a production crew, hosted by students themselves, used to host a morning segment every day. We have many stories to get to tonight, but first, we would like to start off with a message from Principal Beatty and the Pledge of Allegiance. Over to you, Miss Beatty.
Good morning, O'Malley. It's great to see you, and welcome to O'Malley News. I thought we would start the broadcast the same way we start the school day, with the pledge, so please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now let's take another moment to think about those who are struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. It may be you, your family, friends, members of the community. It's a very strange time we're living in right now. So please take a moment with me and reflect. Thank you. Have a great day. Do all your schoolwork and get outside to get some fresh air.
Thank you, Miss Beatty. Now, tonight for our first segment, we have some gardening photos sent in by O'Malley student Shaylee Sullivan. Let's take a look at the photos. Shaylee was quoted saying, "Gardening takes my mind off of online learning and keeps me motivated. How about you?" That's a good question, Shaylee. I'd like to ask some of the O'Malley students, what's keeping their mind occupied besides the online learning during these tough times? If you'd like to send in some photos or videos, please send them into your guidance counselor and you could be featured in an upcoming episode. It's awesome seeing our students get outside, taking photos, getting some exercise in, which segues into our next segment with photos submitted by another O'Malley student, Georgiana Cothers. So let's pull up those photos. Georgiana is quoted saying, "For Mother's Day, we got takeout from a Dominican restaurant in Boston and had a trunk picnic on the back shore for Mother's Day. It's been a tradition to eat there on Mother's Day for 12 years, and we didn't want to break the tradition." 12 years is a long time. That's as long as some of our students have actually been alive, if not longer. And I love the sounds of a trunk picnic. Back shore is one of my favorite places, especially if I'm going out for a run. And I would love to try Dominican food. I can't say I've ever had it, but I'm assuming it's a little bit spicy. And Georgiana also wanted you to know that the dog's name is Trip. They found 4 bunnies in their yard, and the turtles were spotted on a walk in the woods. Now let's take a closer look at a newcomer to O'Malley School, Mr. Hurley, who once was working at Ipswich and has now made his way over to Gloucester. So we're going to take a look at some of the photos that Mr. Hurley sent in. As you can see, he completed a 1980s puzzle. He busted out the old sewing machine, fixed up some of those holes in his pants. He even dusted off the old boggle game, and he has been baking bread. Now, Mr. Hurley wants you to know he is not a Gloucester resident, but the flour does come from Gloucester. He's supporting local business. Way to go, Mr. Hurley. But before we move on from Mr. Hurley, there was a little tidbit that you might not know. Mr. Hurley, before he became a teacher, before he became an assistant principal, was in fact trying to make it up the rankings of the World Boggle Championships. He even made it to the semifinals in 1994 when he was eliminated by Nigel Richards, who is now known as one of the top Scrabble players in the world. Mr. Hurley eventually gave up his boggle dreams, became a teacher, and we're lucky enough to have him today. Thank you, Mr. Hurley, for checking in. We appreciate all the photos that you have sent to us. All right, now let's go to our field correspondents, Mrs. Burke and Mrs. Militello, with the open door.
Hi, O'Malley community. Ms. Burke, Mrs. Militello. We're here at the open door. We're still showing our sales values by giving service, and we're giving back to our community.
Stay healthy.
Bye, we miss you. The open door pantry. Usually we send delegates to the MTA conference, and they get a $200 stipend for their travel expenses. Seeing how they didn't have to travel, they want to donate their $200 each to the open door pantry. Their names are Cynthia Carney, Teresa Danaher, Eric Lee, and Matt Lewis. And we also wanted to throw in another $200 to make it even $1,000 for the open door from the Teachers Union. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke and Mrs. Militello. I did notice that you mentioned the sales values. There may be somebody in this room who really, really loves the sales values. Me. I also may have those tattooed on my ribs. You'll never know. Also, huge thank you to Mr. Lewis, Mrs. Carney, Miss Danaher, and I think the last name of the other teacher or person was Lee. I didn't quite make out who that was. And the Teachers Union for donating $200 each for $1,000. That's awesome. That's impressive and so kind. Thank you so much. Now let's take a live look at the streets of Gloucester.
This is Miss White on the streets of Gloucester, tracking clues completely incognito on a top secret mission to find trivia for the Academic Bowl questions. Let's see what we can find. Ooh, I spot something very interesting over here. Is it? Could it be? Is that you, Sherlock?
It is indeed.
Oh my goodness, it is. If it isn't our own Sherlock Holmes.
It is indeed. Are you looking for clues?
I am. We need some very good trivia, interesting clues about Gloucester for our next academic bowl. Can you help?
It's elementary. All the clues you need are in the history of Gloucester. Good luck, O'Malley School.
Thank you, Sherlock.
Thank you, Mrs. White and Miss Paula Gray. Surprise for all you educators at O'Malley. Now we're going to take a look at Miss Matheson's media that she sent in. She went on multiple hikes and bike rides last week when we had great weather. Here are some videos and pictures of the scenes that she saw throughout the Middlesex Fells Reservation in Medford/Winchester and the Breakheart Reservation in Saugus/Wakefield. The weather was 58 degrees, sunny, but not windy. And our final recorded segment for the evening, sent in by none other than Mrs. Alves, who's going to teach you how to make a mask without knowing how to sew. You won't have to call in Mr. Hurley for this one. Take it away, Mrs. Alves.
Hi, I am going to show you how to make a mask out of leggings without sewing. So make sure you have your parents' permission before you start cutting up leggings. I am kind of done with this pair, so I'm going to show you how to make a mask. You take this is the leg, this is where my foot would come through. I'm going to cut about an 8-inch piece. So I am just going to cut right that foot end right off. Cutting through. So I have something like this, that's the end of my leg there. Then I'm going to cut a little indent. So on one side, I'm going to cut about 1 inch. I'm going to show you just after I do this. So you can see I cut like that. On the same side, and I'm going to do it on the other side, and this will be the back of my mask. So I just cut about 1 inch, indent there. Okay, so now I have something like this. I'm gonna fold this little end and I'm just gonna cut a little circle for my ear. So I'm just gonna cut. So you can see I made a little circle in that indent. I'm gonna make another little circle in my other indent. And that is where now I have something like this. I'm gonna put it over my ears. And ta-da! A homemade mask without sewing. That's it, you can all do it. I miss you all, see you soon.
Thank you, Mrs. Alves. That was wonderful. I wish I had a pair of leggings of my own so I could make a mask. Thankfully, I was fortunate enough to receive a mask, and I wear it when I go out. Before we close tonight's segment, moving forward, we're going to be hosting a video every Friday to look at the O'Malley Innovation Middle School's news, as you can see over my left shoulder. Going forward, we will have specific segments that you can send your submissions in. If you have anything that you would like for us to see, please send it out to one of your guidance counselors, and you could be on the next episode of O'Malley News. I'm your host, Mr. Sousa. Thank you and good night.